Welcome to this new video. Today I'm gonna react to
Nigga.
Don't listen to him, that's my brother. You hear a lot of sound in the background probably, but I'm gonna react to I Turned Popular Junk Food Healthy. Like, not really, but yeah. Yeah, he's playing BitLife in the background. No sponsor.
In this video,
Let's go.
I'm rebranding popular junk food to appear healthy. I'm going to bend the facts, change the styles, and use a little marketing mischief to trick you into thinking sugar and fat is actually good for you. And first up, we have Mountain Dew. Now, this may shock you, but I've never actually drank one of these before. Supposedly, it's got a lemon-lime flavor similar to Sprite. Let me know if that's accurate or not. Either way, one thing is for sure, it is definitely targeted towards teenagers. I mean, just look at all these bright colors, sharp edges, and cool triangles. And this bad boy right here has a whopping 46 grams of sugar, which basically means one can of this stuff and you're halfway to
Diabetes.
So I think the only hope we really have of making this appear healthy is lean into the fact that it's called Mountain Dew. And mountains are in nature, and nature generally gives off a more healthy vibe. So we could just throw a big mountain on here, but that just feels a little too generic. So instead, I want to make an illustration of a mountain man. And this young fella right here seems to be perfect to model him after. Admittedly, his face is a little long, so I'll just squish that down a bit. Now he needs a big old mountain beard. Basically, I want this drink to feel like it's for the outdoorsman. Somebody that likes nature and presumably likes to consume more natural foods and drinks. Of course, he'll need a body, since we don't want him running around headless. And let me see if I can find a hat worthy of our adventurer. Perfect. And now I'm gonna whip out the trusty drawing pad to make an epic illustration. Let's start with the eyes, since those are the gateway to the soul. Lord only knows what kind of soul this man has. Get the eye bags in there. And of course, a nice chunky nose with some big bushy eyebrows for a stern yet calm look. He is older, so a good amount of wrinkles are in order. Now, how in the world do you draw hair? Well, you first want to separate the hair into larger chunks that have a defined shape, and make sure there's a clear separation between the different zones, so the whole thing doesn't feel like random squiggles. And for things like the mustache, running the hair in a distinct direction helps build up even more separation. Of course, the hair closer to the head will have much smaller tufts since it's generally finer. Let's get his explorer hat on him with a nice rugged band and a little line for a lip around the rim. Now some hearty shoulders with a wrinkly shirt, and I actually think it'd be cool to give him a thick leather backpack to match his leather hat. And lastly, I'm gonna fade his body into a solid dark shadow. That way I'll have a nice clean area to put the logo. Now we'll give him a warm, rich color for his skin, some calming blue eyes, and since Mountain Dew's main brand color is green, why not use that for his hair? I guess he's just spent so much time in nature that he's slowly turning into a plant.
You're the plant.
Of course, the hat and the backpack straps are gonna be brown, and a darker green for his shirt. And now I can sneak right in here and add some hatch lines for shading, since I'm going for a decently stylized look for our mountain man. And that will continue up to the wrinkles and the darker areas on the face, as well as really dark areas like here under the hat. Now another quick layer of solid shading to help us break up the hair a bit more, and a secondary layer of soft shading just so those transitions feel a little smoother. But if you thought I was done, well, you're wrong. We have yet another layer of shading just around the big hair shapes I formed earlier, which should really help those areas stand out from each other. The whole face needs some shading as well, along with the hat, the straps, and the shirt. While I'm down here, I'm gonna fade this black into a little more of a green, just so the area isn't so dark, and I'll add in some extra shadows on the shirt to help these wrinkles feel more natural. Well, he kind of looks like the toughest Oompa Loompa I've ever seen, but I like it. Now, I would still like to have some mountains in the background, just to more clearly show that this is a mountain man, and I'll use these same shading techniques that I used on the character, making sure there's enough contrast between the rocks and the man. Let's go with a punchy green sky to stick to our color scheme, and some subtle clouds back in the distance. Maybe a little rim line around the character would be good, just to help him pop out that much more. Of course, we need a cool stylized font for the logo, which I will bend a bit, and I'm gonna put original above that, since Mountain Dew has several different flavors. Then I'll make it red as an homage to the can's original color scheme. Maybe I'll stick a cool tagline up here for that outdoorsy, adventurous spirit, and let's finish up with a super soft layer of texture across the whole thing. Well, we've gone from Mountain Dew to Mountain Dude, and from an edgy teenage brand to a drink for the health-conscious trailblazer. Oh, and by the way, I actually made an entirely different design for Mountain Dew, and I'm gonna post the process video over on my TikTok if you guys can help me get to 10,000 followers on there, which will allow me to monetize, so I can start posting regular short-form content in between longer YouTube videos. Watch out though, there are a few robot Brandon accounts over there that like to steal my content to make money from it, but I've linked my real account down below, so go follow me if you want to see this mystery design and help me defeat the Robo Brandon army. Moving on, we're gonna to tackle Doritos, a chip brand adored by goats around the world. Now,
Good joke. What? No. Why? No, no. No, don't listen to this. Don't look at that. This is just a weird, no. No advertisements in this thing. Oh.
Now, not only did these things make killer taco shells, but they really aren't even that bad for you. They just seem like they would be because they were molded in some manufacturing plant and deep fried in giant vats of oil. But if we make them look like they came from a small town family farm instead, well, that might just be enough to make them appear a little healthier. So let's start off by finding a font that feels kind of vintagey, because that alludes back to an era where things were made by hand. I think this little guy should work perfectly. Now, this is actually just a set of vectors rather than a typical font that you could type out. So I'll need to drag these together to spell out Doritos. And I think I'll actually use this fancy little R instead, just to give this some extra flair. We'll get rid of these decorative lines and pop that in here. I'll stretch it out so it takes up more space on the bag. And you know, I kind of like the idea of putting this on one of those old-timey ribbons, because those always had a very authentic feeling to me. Now I can warp that to fit in there. Maybe a little tail coming off the D would help give it more prominence, since it is the first letter in the word after all. And let's make the whole thing an earthy tan color. Now I think it still feels a tad too clean, so I can just take this cloud texture, save it as a Photoshop file, and then use that as a displacement map to give these edges some wobbles, almost like it was painted by hand. Now I'll give this a solid drop shadow to help it feel more 3D, then a subtle red outline just for a bit of separation between the letters and the shadow, which is a style I think looks pretty cool. Now I know I want this thing to have a lot of texture and grit, so I'll use this craft paper for the background, then these little dots to give it a nice vintage printed look, maybe some bigger red dots so it looks like the text has kind of been roughened up a bit, and finally a slight touch of grunge. Now we want these chips to feel like they came straight from a family farm. So I'm gonna place this farm illustration right up here at the top, but I don't really want it to take up so much space. So what if we put it inside of a circle? Kind of like we're peeking out a tiny window where we can see the farm from. Let's erase some of these lines though, just so the main objects in the illustration read more clearly. Oh, and now we can wrap our ribbon around that and pop it out the other side. Now technically, Doritos are nacho cheese flavored, but apparently nacho cheese is often made with cheddar cheese, which just sounds much healthier for some reason. And that's cheddar cheese flavored, technically, which we'll put in a super tiny font and make it darker so people will pay less attention to it. And you might be surprised to know that these chips actually have no cholesterol in them, which is the perfect thing to say if you want to make these seem good for you. I'll make this text yellow to bring attention to it, and then maybe an extra line to help separate these text blocks. Why don't we go ahead and add a second ribbon down here that I can warp this text block to fit, give it a tiny shadow, and I'll even throw in a couple blocks of artisan cheese. Now maybe these ribbons could actually wrap around themselves, and those parts would be darker of course, because we're looking at the back of the ribbons. And now that I look at it, these kind of look like holes, which gives me an idea. What if we got a big old pile of chips and placed them right in between here, kind of like the chips are falling out one hole and into the other. Of course, a couple can peep over the ribbons for some extra depth. Now you might have noticed, but these aren't Doritos. But with a little lighting and a dash of orange, they become decently passable. Let's just get some nice yellow lighting on these, kind of like they're out in the fresh sunlight on our small family farm. Speaking of which, I'll stick old-fashioned up here to really hammer that vibe home. Let's get some shadows cast by these ribbons, of course the chips as well, and I actually think the top would look better darker, just so we can bring more attention to the actual farm scene. And lastly, a little rim light across the ribbons, and a subtle bottom shadow too. And even though these chips come straight off a factory line, you'd swear they're natural artisan-made snacks from the finest farm in town. Our next healthy battle will be with M&M's, which also happened to be the first candy that went to outer space. Now here's the thing, there's very little redeeming health qualities when it comes to chocolate, except for maybe dark chocolate, but these aren't dark chocolate. However, they are peanut M&Ms, so my brain blast for the day is instead of branding these as chocolate candies that contain peanuts, I'm gonna brand them as peanuts with a thin chocolate coating. They're exactly the same thing, but one sounds way healthier. So let's start with two big M's for our logo, and whereas the original design had dark letters with a white outline, I'm gonna do the opposite by using light letters with a dark outline. Now I really like the idea of extending these out to make them super beefy. I'll have the S just kind of hang off the side here in a bit of a playful manner. Of course the and has to go somewhere in here, so what if I just put that on an actual M&M? It can go right here like it's printed on the candy, just give it a little shading, a shine, and it could even cast a small shadow onto the letters below. Now I have left a little bit of space down here to put some type of tagline, and I'm thinking like something that gives you energy, maybe like peanut power bites. Give that a little container to match the logo, and we'll slap a little clarifying text up top saying these are chocolate coated peanuts. So of course one of the most beloved parts about the regular M&M brand is the candy characters, which is why they've got them right here on the package. So to better sell these as peanut snacks, snacks, I'm gonna go with a large peanut character instead. And I think it'd be really cool to use kind of like a retro cartoon style. Give him some of those big old-timey shoes.
Wow.
And I'll even have him leaning up against the logo, looking all cool with his gloved hands. He'll be showing off his massive bicep with his other arm. So this package is basically saying that peanuts make you strong, and if you want to look tough and confident like this guy, well then you should be eating these peanut power bites. You know, he actually turned out like every power lifter in my local gym. Thick arms, big pot belly, and teeny tiny legs. Now of course, not every athlete is strength focused, so let's add a cute little chocolate character right down here in this empty space to represent the chocolate in these peanut bites, and we'll make him a runner with some cute little feet, a headband to go with that, and the most determined face you've ever seen. We'll need some shadows casting
The
on
flag of Luxembourg, out of the Netherlands. Sorry.
feet, a headband to go with that, and the most determined face you've ever seen. We'll need some shadows casting on the ground, as well as the letters to help tie everything together. To accent the retro theme, a halftone pattern seems more than appropriate. And finally, maybe some cartoon pow lines around the edges will give this whole thing a bit of energy. Well, we've gone from sugary treats you'd binge eat on the couch to a health snack fit for whatever kind of athlete you believe yourself to be. Go follow me on TikTok to join the real Brandon Army. And if you want to watch me fix overly minimal designs, then you will love this video.
Yeah, guys, this guy is good. Brandon Shepherd. Yeah, he's a good Photoshopper, but no, sorry. Bye, guys. Bye, guys. I'll see you in the next video. So, yeah, bye.